Unfiltered with Bran Otieno and Dongo Gashane.
Hello and welcome to yet another episode of Unfiltered, a podcast on KTN News that goes beyond the headlines to give you unbiased analysis of news and current affairs. Today we are interviewing former Nyeri Town MP, Mr. Ngunjiri Wambogo, a man who recently deserted former Deputy President Rigathi Gachagua, but still sticks to him like glue. My name is Bran Otieno. I'm one of the hosts alongside Bwana
Dongo Gachane. Tuko hapa.
Karibu sana mheshimiwa.
Asante sana Brian. Thank you Dongo.
Yes.
Clearly wacha tuseme maneno.
Yeah, we are glad to have you here.
Very happy to be here. It's been a minute. I haven't been to KTN in a bit. You guys are doing a fantastic job.
Asante sana.
Kure ground unasikia bado tunafanya maneno.
Naona mpaka headlines zetu zimekuwa placards.
Headlines zimekuwa placards, but for a reason.
Yeah.
For a reason, and for the third week, man, in this show we are sadly discussing again the issue of police brutality. So what happened with the cop shooting a guy who was unarmed.
Yes.
Where do you think the country is headed?
We're in a very untidy place. The reality of it, and I think anybody who says otherwise is not being realistic. We're in a very untidy place. Part of the problem is we have lost control to a large extent of many things. We've lost control of how we secure public demonstrations. We've lost control of how we run public demonstrations. We've lost control of the conversation. I was in civil society approximately 15 years ago, and we used to do demos even then. But even as much as those demos were also handled pretty badly by the security of that time, there was always a connection between the demo and the demonstrators. You'd always tell where exactly what the end state looks like. You know, there was always something we were demonstrating about. Today we are building a vicious cycle of demonstrations. Let me give an example. We had a demonstration yesterday in regards to Albert Ojwang, who was killed in police. Then during that demonstration, somebody gets hurt. Boniface Mwangi Kariuki, and thank God, and God forbid something worse had happened to him and he had passed away. The way this thing's going, would have had a demo about him. That would have been the next demonstration, you know. And then in that demonstration, something happens. So our demos are feeding
Bigger demos.
Yes. Bigger demos, and we at a certain point you're asking, you tend to ask, okay, so where are we really going? And then to a large extent, part of also the problem we have. I was in a show earlier today and somebody was saying, you know, young people should be allowed to demonstrate. And I was telling him, even the looters and the guys who are thugging people, there's a very sad thing I saw yesterday. There's a guy I watched, I think he's a lawyer. I think I saw Law Society talking about him. He was carrying files, you know, and the guy just went around a corner and found a mob of young guys. And in my head, I'm thinking, even him, what happened? Because he went to walk through them. And in the middle of it, guys just turned vicious and started robbing him. You know, and when you look at that group, they are all young people. So the guys who are robbing. So we have legitimate, genuine demonstrators who are young guys. Then we have a mob of goons who are young guys. And then we have police officers who are primarily young people. So we have three groups of young people in the streets, antagonistic to each other. We have goons who have taken this as an opportunity to go and thug. We have demonstrators who actually have a cause. We have police officers who I suspect are as frustrated as Kenyans, as the rest of Kenyans, but they are supposed to be in a disciplined formation, and they meet with their peers. And we're actually looking at an implosion, and that's why it keeps happening. We have people like these police officers who shot Boniface, and you're wondering, what the hell were they thinking?
Who do you think is
but much more, even before we go to who do you think to blame, don't you think the state is also trying to infiltrating and using goons and militia to try and control the protests? And you have been here, you know how some of the state-sponsored goons and even militias were started in the past. We know the Mungeke sect, how it was started by powerful political figures.
Yes.
We have Sugu, we have other groups in Nakuru like Conform Group. Don't you think the government seems, as you say, rightly put it, that is not in control? But don't you think they are trying to use, is like after they have failed to use the police to maintain law and order, don't you think there is a narrative and quite a pattern that they are introducing use of goons to try and cause mayhem so as to discourage these protests?
This show is called Unfiltered.
Yeah.
So I assume we are speaking candidly.
Yeah.
First, I don't think this government is introducing the use of goons. I think it is just doing what has been done in the past.
True.
When you think, incidentally, by the way, I think the only Kenyan who has a court order in his name to do a demonstration. Many years ago, there was something called Limuru 2 that made some declarations, and then I was a part. I think I was 30 years old or something, and I was one of the people who didn't agree with that particular declaration, and I went to do a demo, and we were beaten up by policemen very badly. In fact, that was the first time I was on a headline. I went to court, and I went and I pursued, and I said I have a right to picket,
protest,
to demonstrate and present petitions. And I actually got an order in my name, an order from the High Court written to Gunjiri Wambugu, and it instructed the police commissioner at that time of Central Province to give me security.
The provincial commissioner.
The provincial
the PC,
commissioner.
Yeah.
Actually, no, the police. I think
The police,
police commander or something, yes, to give me security to go back and have my demo, right? And in the middle of all that commotion, we're talking about 20 years ago, what I have noticed over the years, even during Kibaki, that was under Kibaki's government, then during Uhuru's government, by then I had started becoming a leader of some sort and becoming a politician. There's always, if you remember when Raila was going to swear himself, there had been a whole series of demos before that. And in those demos, we had the same story.
Even the people who are calling themselves the business community.
In fact, that's where I was coming.
Yes.
There was an entire structure that used to do press conferences. And they would do press conferences wearing American fatigues, American army fatigues.
Yes, combat.
And combat uniform. And they were saying, look, inaonekana serikali imeshindwa to protect us. So the idea of introducing goons into demonstrations has not just begun now. And I think it comes from a situation where police know they cannot win in a fight between demonstrators and them.
Yes.
They are always going to be there. The weak. And I think the logic, because I remember one time asking somebody many years ago, so what is the logic? Because that time they used to mobilize university students. And they would go on the streets, and then they would come in and see if they're part of the demonstrators. And then in the middle of the demonstration, there would be conflict between this group of demonstrators and this group of demonstrators. So the idea used to be then the police come and chase all of you.
Yes, so that now we now finalize on
but don't you think it's fueling a dangerous situation in the sense that the police are enabling the goons, and the state is also turning a blind eye to all of this?
Absolutely. If this, Haiti didn't just happen.
Yeah, it didn't.
Haiti didn't just happen, And when you think about the fact that the guy, he's called Barbecue.
Yeah, Barbecue.
Barbecue was a police officer, right? So Barbecue carves a path for himself and walks around with goons. So where did they go? He didn't just go looking for goons. He most probably had been working with these goons when he was a police officer, and then when complete law and order broke down, he just picked his group of goons and formed themselves into a militia and cut a part of the country for themselves. So the path we are on is actually a very, very dangerous path. And it's where I'm saying it's important for us to look at this thing holistically. You remember when Trump lost the election? Yeah. Now in America, the problem with America, the militias are actually armed properly, not rungus. Guys showed up with some serious weaponry to fight for what they thought was their space. So we are starting a very dangerous thing when you start watching people walking in the streets carrying rungus. and saying that
And
they're coming to defend themselves.
Yeah.
It's a very dangerous
and also
precedent we are
a bit of hypocrisy still, because we see some of our police officers are in Haiti trying to help the country calm the situation.
To get rid of
And to get
guns.
rid of
Guns.
we got gangs, and we are forming, and
we are forming gangs in the
creating
city.
an environment
That
this-
lets them thrive. Yeah.
First, I think it's important for us to agree that we will not stop demonstrations.
Yes.
I think demonstrations is an acceptable way of showing disagreement with government, right? And so that's the first thing. I think the second thing we need to accept as a country is that our demonstrations have moved. When I was talking about this other conversation we were having, we were in with the guy who was a former KNUT Secretary General, and we were talking about how NAT does demos. You know, they come to the street, and you know everybody on that street is dressed in a certain way because they're all teachers. Or doctors come on the streets, and you know these are doctors because they have their jackets on, or nurses. The problem we're now having is that our demos are no longer agitating for a commercial or a work-related thing. These are now political demos. And you see, and there's no law that stops us. There's no law that says that the only demos you can do are work-related.
Yeah.
Anybody can do a demo. So we have political demos, and we need to start talking very candidly amongst ourselves about how do you process
And
political demos.
what comes to your mind when you see politicians threaten demonstrators? Last time you caught me unawares, jaribuni marudi.
Inaitangwa kiburi. Called hubris. And this is a problem about power, political power. It's I think it gets to everybody's head, because you believe you are in charge of the city, for example, and then you are being told there are people who are going to come into this city and they're going to do demonstrations, and you completely lose focus of the fact that instead of talking about how do we make sure they have a proper demonstration, you're already preempting the fact that this demonstration is going to be violent. Also part of it is a precedent. Every demo we've had in this country has been violent. Again, last year we had the first demo. Young people went to the streets with smartphones and water. First day turned out okay. Second day, I think by the third day, guys were like, "Apana." Now we need to do something about this. So infiltrated goons. Today, it didn't even take one day. You have a proper demo for 2 hours. By the third hour, goons are in place. By evening, we are in shambles. And then let's also be honest. We when we're talking about the reality of how demos are being done, we need to agree on the structure of how demos are going to be done. You see, there's a fallacy that exists that the police are in the street to protect demonstrators. Police are in the street to protect demonstrators and non-demonstrators. Because you see, like now, if people decide to come and demonstrate outside standard, you know, you'll still come to work. And you're not part of the demonstrators.
True.
So you need to be allowed to go about
work,
your business. If I have a kiosk outside, I need to be able to open my kiosk and continue doing my business. So there's a conversation we are refusing to have as a country, that as you do your demonstration and I go about my business, how do I make sure that your right to demonstrate doesn't interfere with my right to go about my business? And how does that police officer ensure that you demonstrate safely and I can go about my business safely? Now, until we have that conversation, we will continue having bad demonstrations in this country.
True. I want us to move on from that subject.
Actually, the other thing that, other than issues to do with police brutality, and I think we have really tackled that issue very excellently. The other issue, and most of the actual listeners, when
most viewers
when they heard that you are coming, you know, we had told them yesterday that you are coming, and one of the main issues I wanted to know is what is your beef with former Deputy President Gachagua, because you were once his ally, an advisor, so to speak, and now,
not so to speak,
officially, you are now one of his biggest critics, especially from Kenya region. Even the government allies are fearing to attack him, but still using your social media in a very injecting. And something else that he said that you were given 10 million, Mheshimiwa, 10, and you cannot even. Did you come?
His politics that lucrative.
The stories about what I have, the reasons, by the way. First,
Yes.
we'll talk about that kind of narrative. I've been told I was given 10 million.
And you also a gatekeeper.
I was told I was collecting money at the gate.
Yeah.
I was told I was NIS.
Yes.
I was an NIS agent, so I'd been placed there. And you see, some of those stories are all contradictory. If I was NIS, then I don't need to be given 10 million.
Oh, to be.
I mean,
NIS is more lucrative.
not even lucrative. Then it means I was on assignment. So why would I then be paid for doing what I did?
And that was part of your job
It was part of my job description, you know. Then I was with him for 18 months, so for around 16 to 18 months.
Yes.
And then if I was doing all those things for those 18 months and he didn't see, then kuna kashida pahali. I think
yani mlikana yeye for that long.
and I was actually
kujua kwamba wewe you are just
NIS, na collect pesa kwa gate ama na nimetumwa nikuje nimfunike. The problem, I think part of these conversations come up when you have to explain why somebody has left.
Yes.
And people are asking you, lakini Kunjiri, kwa nini akona ubaya hivi? And I'll use the same argument that he uses. When you come out and you are upset about coming out, then it means you feel you are treated unfairly. Because even him, he injects against Ruto every single day. If you ask him, alipatiwa pesa?
Anasema alikataa pesa.
Sasa alikataa pesa akatoka na hasira. Unatoka na hasira kwa nini unakataa pesa? So I think first it's important for us to agree that it is possible to disagree.
Yes.
Without getting paid. If I had 10 million ningenunua tu unga mingi na maziwa ya powder niweke pale kwa kioski yangu watu waendelee kukula, niwe na at least stock ya miaka 5 watu waendelee kukunywa chai na mandazi.
So you are saying you were never given 10 million.
But what is the mheshimiwa, everyone, each one of us has exes.
Yes.
And we are not on their case as much as you are on Gachagua's case.
First and foremost, if this was about being an ex, then Gachagua has been an ex to Ruto.
But we are talking about you.
No, I'm saying maybe I learned from him. Maybe I learned from him. You know, I was working with him. So maybe niliona huyo ndio mtu anafanyanga. Ukiachana na ex na wewe unachimba una entrench na wewe unaanza vitu. But see, it's slightly more than that.
Yes.
I assume that Gachagua goes after Ruto with tangible reasons.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
That make him feel you are the wrong person. And he goes after him. And if that is the case, then I think that's what is fair for what's good for the good is for the goose is good for the gander. If it's good for him, then I think I should be given the same benefit of doubt. If I'm going after him, as you say, then there must be a tangible reason why I'm going after him.
What's the tangible reason?
First, the tangible reason. We worked very well with Gachagua because first I remember I joined Gachagua halfway into his short term deputy president.
Quarter term.
Sasa mnaita quarter term. Unajua watu wanaita quarter term na hiyo ni kumaanisha Ruto anarudi. Because it will become quarter term if Ruto comes back.
If Ruto comes back. So you're saying it's not even a
Ruto is not coming back, then it is half term.
It's half term.
So it depends na wewe umekaa side gani. Kisikia mtu akisema ni quarter term.
So are you trying to
mtu ya kurudi, mtu ya two term. Kisikia mtu akisema ni half term. Mtu ya one term.
Tutamuuliza hiyo.
Hapana.
So I joined him when things had started getting a bit sketchy with him in terms of how he was relating with his colleagues. And the reason, actually, I was approached and I was called. And I always make fun. The first time he called me, I didn't see the call. So he calls me the next day and tells me, wewe nimekupigia simu na uchukui. So mkubwa mimi sikuona. So we checked and we agreed. We had a meeting in his private residence and we talked, you know, people forget. Before I was his ally, I was his critic.
Harsh one.
A harsh one. Not just a nice
you
one.
You used to say, give him the mic.
To call him, give him the mic. You know? And so our relationship with him has been, I don't know why guys are getting really upset with criticizing him now. I have done it before.
You have already gone back to where you were.
So we have done an up, down. Now we are up again, or is it down, up, and down again?
Yes.
So he called me and we sat down and we had a very candid conversation. And I told him, look, you are now the Deputy President of the Republic of Kenya. And I'm not dealing with you as Gachagua. When I was dealing with him, when I was criticizing him before, he was a colleague, a member of Madeira, and I was a member of Nyeri Town. So now we are in a situation where we are now dealing with you as an office holder. And number two, I'm dealing with you as the senior most politician from the region I come from. And it is in my best interest for you to succeed. And that is where I went to work with him. And we did the best we could. I think a lot of mismanagement had happened before, because by the time the impeachment came in, this is one of the things we don't talk about. Then I was challenging even the guys who impeached him to have a candid conversation. Maybe come here and you have a candid conversation with them.
Yes, our beef. What's
because
wrong?
you see, there's something we forget, and I think Gachagua has done a very good job of obscuring that conversation. Gachagua was not impeached by his enemies. He was impeached by his friends.
His friends?
Yes.
Does he have friends?
Think about this. He has said this publicly. The people who impeached him are people he campaigned for.
Yeah.
For example, come to Nyeri town,
Yeah.
right? The guy who Gachagua, and I have clips, Gachagua doing rallies and saying, "Unatoa Kameko." Naeka DMM. You see, he actually campaigned viciously and very aggressively, for example, for DMM, by Duncan Maina Mathenge, to become member of parliament for Nyeri town.
Where did the name Kameko come from?
Because I'm short.
I think it came from, there is that kagas.
Sindio nasema kale kagas kale. And you know then
Si upishi, huko umeanza kuuza mandazi.
Kameko.
Yeah.
It was Gachagua. It was Gachagua who called me Kameko. Then me I owned it. So hata nikifanya campaign nilikuwa naekelea hiyo meko kwa gari.
So bado huko unapika mandazi yote.
Hiyo sio tu umeanza. So I think you could see where I was going. So I used to say meko ni mzuri inapika haraka nini. So he came and said toa Kameko
Tuweke DMM.
Now the guy you said awekwe then goes and signs for you to get impeached.
And he also, if I was to remind you, he also negotiated because I was working in Nyeri.
Yes.
Then there was the senator for Nyeri was actually wanted to vie for the governor.
So he negotiated for Wamatinga, stepped back,
so that the
allowed
governor
Kahiga
can
to
be
go back
elected
again.
and you go for the Senate.
Wamatinga voted against him.
And this is a man who
He
also
picked
came from
Eric
Mandela.
Wamumbi, who was an MCA when he became the candidate for DP. He went and picked Eric, who had actually paid his fees to go to run again as an MCA in Nyeri. He took him and pushed him to become member of parliament of Madeira. Now, when you have these are not your enemies. These are people you've been in the trenches with, you fought with. Ruto, as he keeps saying, Ruto is the one who was in charge of this impeachment process. Ruto was his part. He used to stand and say, who you in Giguyu. So, the first conversation we need to have is, he got impeached by his friends. People who knew him politically. People who owed him politically. People he had done stuff for politically. So by the time you get into that part of the conversation, you need to be able to ask yourself, so what is it? And it's not one person, not two.
True.
The three largest parties in the country. Party number one, ODM. Party number one, UDA. Party number two, ODM. Party number three, Jubilee. The three largest parties came together across party lines and agreed to impeach Gachagua. So you have to ask yourself, Allah, if ODM impeached you, then maybe that was...
It's understandable.
UDA, your own party, where you're deputy party leader, sits down and signs. I was in that parliament in 12th. We couldn't raise 2/3 to raise our salaries or to extend our term, which are now personal benefits to members of parliament. But they raised 300 signatures. Not
But they were paid, Mheshimiwa. Gachagua says that these people were paid. How many millions?
When we were trying to raise money, when we were trying to raise 2/3, it was for our own pay.
Yes.
So even if you were paid namna gani, you get what I'm saying?
But
So also, let me
worked as an advisor. Why didn't you advise? Why didn't you rally behind senators to at least stop
we tried.
the
We tried, and again.
But they offered money. How
Part of the
were you
injection-
promising more
let me tell
than
you,
them
part
more
of
money?
the injections that I keep having, and I'm going to be coming to those ones later on in the month, is
Yes.
you have 45 senators who are there now 57. I think all of them were involved this time, and you're supposed to deal with to stop. You just needed how many?
Is it 10? I'm on 17.
He needed 7 more than
Seven.
what he got.
Oh, he got.
I think he got 14.
Oh, he
He
needed 21. 21.
to stop the impeachment. And you're telling the country you are not able to convince 7 senators not to impeach you. Okay, we can say it's about money. You convinced 14.
Yes.
You know,
If it's
Mhesh,
about money.
Mhesh, I'm yet to hear your tangible reason. Why
No, but you see, now we are first
Even before we
I'm
go there.
beginning the conversation
Even before we go there. I want to
I'm
hear-
setting the context.
Yes.
Okay.
Before we even get to the real context, Mheshimiwa, you were part of Gachagua's advisory team.
Yes.
You got 14.
I was actually in the house.
Why did
I
you?
was inside.
How did you not? Were you not able to convince the 7 people?
First, I think that's why I talked about a lot of damage had been done.
Yes.
One of the things you keep hearing these members of parliament and the senators saying is how Gachagua had become arrogant and a bully. And a lot of them were like, you know what? Then there was this narrative that he had told them that if they don't change their minds by December,
they're going home.
They're going home. So I think they went and caucused and said, haya, takama tutaenda nyumbani, we are sending you home, tutakukuta huko. That was the first thing. And so it tells you there was a problem. Because me, as I'm saying, by the time I started working for him, because I started working for him in November 2023, by the time I was starting to work for him in 2023, there was already a lot of tension between him in Parliament, a lot of tension between him and Senate. And you've lost your first allies, because your first allies are the people from your county.
Yes. True.
Your senator, your colleague members of Parliament. So you have the member of Parliament for Kenny, Mheshimiwa Sheni, is not talking to you. You have the member of Parliament for Tetu, who actually signed, though he ended up voting no, but he signed the initial impeachment. You have the member of Parliament for Madera. He both signed. Not only just signed, lobbied, and signed and got you impeached. You have the member of parliament for Udaya, right? Yeah. Then you have the member of parliament for Nyeri Town. So out of 6 members of parliament elected for the constituencies, you had one. Out of the senators and the women rep, I'm not sure which way Mukami went, but I've never had her being counted who didn't vote.
No, she voted for the impeachment. So the records are out
at
there.
the county level, you both of the county elected people, none of them supported you. This is your home county. These are people you went and campaigned for. Yeah. You had a clean sweep, because they had a clean sweep in Nyeri County. UDA had a clean sweep. So these are actually your people. And 90% of them voted to send you home. Yeah. So there was a problem. Even before we get to the point of what could I have done, I think by the time I was stepping into the office, a lot of water and a lot of harm had gone. So my fallout, because we went through all the way to December to November.
Even after the impeachment,
we continued with him in November, in December, in January. Started putting the party together. And the Democratic Citizens Party, incidentally, is not a brand new party.
Oh,
it's not.
You mean?
It's not a brand new party.
It was given the provisional certificate, I think, in February this year.
It was given. I don't think it's a provisional certificate, because it got the final. But if you go into his history, you'll find that it was registered. The process began like 2-3 years ago.
The process.
Yes. Okay. The gentleman who is Secretary General, I think, was the person who was Hezron.
Or Bug.
Incidentally, Hezron was in Jubilee.
The
in the last election.
The DCP now.
Yes.
Okay.
And then he went to UDA.
He held which position in Jubilee?
He was one of the people who were helping in the head office, and then he went to UDA, and then he was seconded by UDA to go and work in Gachagua's office.
Oh, okay.
In ODP, right? So the parties had begun before. They're now here where Gachagua has left, and he's trying to figure out which party to pick up. He had quite a number of options. Decided this is the one that we can wrap up with, and he wraps up with it, and he gets a certificate. Now, when this was happening, one of the suggestions I actually gave to him, incidentally, most people don't know, I never left Jubilee.
So even when you were working,
I was working for him, I was still in Jubilee, and he knew.
Okay.
He knew I was in Jubilee, and part of the reason why that wasn't in conflict is because at no point was there a situation where I was expected to represent a party. Remember, I was working for the deputy president. I was not working for a party.
For the office,
right? For the office. So the only time when we started having a conflict as far as parties are concerned is when we've left office.
Yes.
And now we're launching a party. I remember.
So your first point of departure was
now at that point, at party level. Because my first proposal to him was, you destroyed Jubilee in Mount Kenya. Right? So if you really, really genuinely want to help Mount Kenya, why not go back to Jubilee? You've already apologized to Uhuru, right? Not just once, several times. And this is politics.
Oh, yeah, he apologized.
Yes.
And did they meet?
Not to my knowledge. So you've apologized to Uhuru several times, right? And Uhuru is a politician. Yeah. And I don't think Uhuru would want to see Jubilee die, right? At this moment in time, Jubilee has approximately 30 elected MPs and senators, but most of them are from Northeastern.
Yeah.
So my proposal to him was, we only have Kwenya and Kiaraho as elected members of parliament for Mount Kenya, and then Sabina as a nominated.
And Kanini Yala.
And then Kanini Yala, right? So my proposal to him was, why not go back to Jubilee? You know, I told me, no. Me, I don't want to go to a party that existed. I want to get a party that I have full control.
Okay.
Right? And that was my first point of
Yes.
impact. Because I was like, okay, so, you know me, I'm in Jubilee.
Yes.
So we decided a conversation about whether will I join DCP, what will I do? But I still felt there was absolutely no need of beginning a new party. When you already had a party first that has structures, has not just won one election, has won two. It has a party leader who is a former president.
Yes.
You want to take over the regional leader. This guy is a person, is a kingpin. Even you accept publicly that he's a kingpin. So if you really want to go that direction, so you go there, sit with him, have a conversation. Of course, it's going to take a bit of working and hard work to convince him that you mean well. But since you genuinely mean well, or if you genuinely mean well, it's something that you can do, because Uhuru can never come back to active politics. He can only now bless somebody else to continue. And in my opinion, Gachagua would have been the ideal person.
But Mheshimiwa, assuming you are Gachagua, this is a guy who has apologized not once, not twice to former President Uhuru Kenyatta and his mother, Mama Ngina. But he showed some interest in meeting the former president, and the former president has not granted you an appointment to meet him. In fact, the person the former president met is President William Ruto, and I believe Gachagua would have wanted to meet Uhuru even before the president. Assuming you are Gachagua, would you also agree the same route? Because this is a party.
Would you go back to the
and
same
also
party?
consider also that this is a party that is having some leadership wrangle. There are two factions. Remember, one of nominated MP, Sabina Chege, is a party leader. And then Kanini Kega is the SG. Then there's another faction for Kioni. And then there is a new faction of Moses Kuria.
No, Moses has just said he wants to be SG. Which is okay, by the way.
So tell me, before we now actually move into the Jubilee politics, supposing you are Gachagua, would you agree to go to a party that you do not have full control?
You see, that is the problem. Nobody should have full control of a party. As far as I'm concerned. And actually, that is my primary conflict.
Okay.
You see, what does full control mean? Because you see, a political party carries the aspirations and careers of a lot of people. Why would I give my career to you? Why would I give you full control over my career as a politician? Let's assume I want to run for a member of parliament under your party. Why would you be the final decision maker of whether I can run, for example?
But then don't you think, as Gashane said, don't you think Gachagua is justified? Because he's been in UDA.
He's gotten hurt.
Yeah, he's been hurt there. Alifinywa.
Yes.
And he says
in a foreign party.
Yes.
So you're asking him to go to another party.
And not only that, even Brian, remember the history of the Kenyan political parties. They are special purpose vehicles. And the face of political parties is actually individuals. If we talk about Wiper, we see Kalonzo. If we talk about Ford Kenya, we see Wetangula. If we talk about ODM, Raila is, in fact, the other name of Raila should be ODM. We talk about the DAP Kenya, we see Eugene. Wamalwa. So if we see Jubilee, one, we see Uhuru and Rangos. And now you want to invite Gachagua.
And that's why, as much as that was our point of departure.
Yes, that was one of the points of
justifiable
departure.
because he refused to accept that.
And he also refused
and then me, I was like, boss,
it's a fair game.
In the 18 months that you worked with him,
yes,
did he ever bully you?
No.
Is he a bully?
He is a bully. That he is. I mean, anybody who's worked close to him will confirm that. Yes. I think part of the reason why it was hard to bully me is first, we were peers.
Yeah. You served in the 12th parliament with him
together.
Yeah.
So there's only so far you can bully, and then I'm not. We come from the same general area, and Gachane has worked in Nyeri. Tell you, Nyeri people are a bit complicated. Kuna vile tu hawezi sukuma sisi. Same thing you're seeing with Gachagua. There's only so far that you can skuma him, but then people forget that even me, I come from there. So there's only so far you can skuma me. So that was also, we actually never had an incident where he bullied me, but I did see it happening, because when you hear a lot of members of parliament who impeached him arguing that the reason with his problem with this guy is he was a bully. He never used to listen. He expected you to do what you want. And even right now, when you listen to him speak, since now he launched
DCP.
you can see the bully in him. You know, the guy is saying, man, we are only going to have one party in Mount Kenya. If you are not with us, you are with Kasongo.
But Mheshimiwa,
I mean,
Mheshimiwa, because I've been following the Mount Kenya politics,
yes.
there are a number of politicians that you personally took to Gachagua.
Yes.
Remember former, is it Limuru MP?
Yes.
Peter Mwadhi.
Yes. Yes.
Former Kiumo MP Jamri Kamau.
Yes.
These were officials of the Jubilee Party. They are now singing tune to Gachagua. So, do you think Jubilee can be revived, can be reinvigorated in Mount Kenya region, or do you think this is kama kupaka paka rangi?
We will not know that. See, right now, Jubilee has 30 members of parliament.
Yes.
DCP doesn't have anyone.
That is true.
As of this moment in time. That's the reality.
Yes.
The second thing is that Jubilee actually gets money from government.
Yeah. Yeah, they got actually it was the largest party.
Million, 100 something
because
million.
the first part was UDA, then ODM, then number 3 was actually Jubilee.
Number
party.
3,
yeah,
this is a party that has history. It has structures. Any party that has gone to a presidential election
yes.
has structures, right? And that's how you will never know. That's why give it to Wiper, give it to ODM, give it to UDA,
yes.
give it to Jubilee, give it to DP, Democratic Party.
Yeah.
Any party that has reached a presidential election and presented a presidential candidate tends to have structures that go across close to the 15,000 polling centers that we have. You can't wish that away. KANU as well. Remember, KANU left power close to 30 years ago, and you still see them. You'll go to a village, you'll find a KANU office. You go to Apple.
KANU is very strong because the party leader is very strong.
Yes, you will find them and you will be like, yeah, you guys are still around. And you'll find people who tell you, mimi ni mtu ya KANU. You're wondering how.
But in the commission, you remember there was PNU that took Kibaki to State House. There was also NAC.
And PNU is still around.
But how... The political oomph and force,
again,
the
a lot
vigor
of that depends on the leadership at the moment.
The leadership.
You've been candid and said Jubilee has been going through wrangles. KANU went through wrangles when Moi left.
Yeah.
Remember when Uhuru had a faction, Uhuru had a faction, and they fought over that thing. And then at some point, both Uhuru and Uhuru left. Right now, Jubilee, fortunately, last week we got an order from the court that actually confirmed that the leadership is with Uhuru
and Kioni.
It took back where we were supposed to go. Yes. So now the next work, in fact, some of the conversations we've been having with the SGs, we now need to go and talk to people who want to run with wherever you are. Start organizing caucuses at county level and say, do you want to run for office? Not necessarily with us. We just invite you, come, talk to us, listen to us, see whether you want to run on Jubilee. And this is our background. So Jubilee is not dead. You don't. It won't be dead until the day you go to Parliament and you don't find anyone.
So who is the Mount Kenya region kingpin as with us for as per now?
Uhuru Kenyatta. I mean, that one even Gachagua confirms.
Surely, Mahesh.
But you keep saying,
you are talking about Uhuru Kenyatta. You said Uhuru is not going to come back to active politics.
And maybe a rider to Gachaga's question.
Yes.
After the 2022 elections, you spoke in different interviews. You said that now Gachagua is the senior most politician.
Yeah, absolutely.
The ground has shifted with Gachagua. So essentially, you were saying that this is the main man in Mount Kenya.
No, remember, let me clarify. When I was saying that, the ground had shifted to Gachagua. That was when he was deputy president. And my argument was Gachagua is the senior most politician in office. And I also said regional kingpins, becoming a regional kingpin is something you earn your way into. You have a position. Based on how you work with your position, the region accepts you as a kingpin of the region. This point is moot because Gachagua himself, on more than one occasion, has confirmed that the regional kingpin of Mount Kenya is Uhuru Kenyatta. I think that's not in dispute. Now, what is going to happen is, as we go into the next election, we will now see who will mobilize from the peak. The region behind him. Right? And the reason why Uhuru is still the leader at this moment in time is because even when Moi left office in 2002, it took close to an entire term for the leadership of the Rift Valley
up to 2007.
Yes, to shift
to Ruto,
from Moi to Ruto. And it happened in now. So Gachagua could do this, but at this moment in time, the leader of the region is Uhuru Kenyatta.
But you must agree that Gachagua looks the most likely to be the kingpin of the region.
You see, right now, Gachagua is the only guy in the region on top of cars. There's nobody else. I mean, let's be honest. There's nobody else driving around.
And are we going to see a
So
scenario
what is the ground? What is the ground telling you? Is it telling you to go to Gachagua
or to Jubilee, to stick to Jubilee?
Let me first start from that point. Gachagua is the only person agitating and activating the ground right now. So anywhere you go, the only person they're seen talking on behalf of the region is
Gachagua.
Now, if this were to stay all the way to the next election, Gachagua would actually automatically.
Now the question is, do you see it changing?
Of course. You see, politics is very dynamic. We have 26 months to the next election. Can Gachagua sustain the momentum he has? He could. But then it also depends on who will be his challengers. And number two, how accommodative is he going to be? If he continues being insular and continues speaking as if everybody else, he has this thing of saying, if you're not in DCP, he's creating a black and white.
Yes.
If you're not with us, you're with the enemy. If he continues that, a lot of us who do not agree to his politics will fight him. And we'll not just fight him on Facebook. We'll fight him machinally. And now, every fight we take takes a bit away from him. So if I fight him, Munya fights him, Mother fights him. You saw when they were in Kirinyaga, Mother was very, very firm. We must respect multi-party
democracy. Yeah, he also talked about something.
She talked
very
about her
interesting
party
and cousins.
And then there's something she made. There's a very interesting statement she made. She said, "Mkimaliza kusikiza ground, mkuje People's Liberation Party."
And it was
so anasema hii sikizeni ground.
Lakini mkuje.
Mkimaliza mkuje kwa chama yangu. You see, now that's the problem that Gachagua needs to expect. He can activate the ground. He can agitate it away from government. But he shouldn't imagine that he'll agitate it away from government to himself. He could actually cut it away from government to somebody
someone else. And I think looking at Gachagua, that seems to be his plan. He seems to more inclined to accepting the role of being a kingmaker in the end. Do you think the region could rally behind someone else?
Well, they did it in 2022. He convinced the region to rally behind.
Was it Gachagua who convinced the region, or was it Ruto?
Ruto had done a lot of work, a lot of work. But then also Ruto needed affirmations from people from the region. He couldn't have done it by himself. So Gachagua did quite a bit of work in affirming the region, telling them this is a good person. And then that's his biggest problem right now. Because those of us who are in Jubilee kept telling him, boss, you utaona maneno. He said, no, I can handle Ruto. Nyinyi atieni huyu jamaa. Mimi huyu jamaa siwezi shindwa. Mimi nimekuwa kwa serikali for a longer time than him. Now here we are. But then as we go to 2027, the interesting conversation we're going to be having is, can the region be convinced? There's a Kikuyu saying that a mistake is not a mistake until you repeat it.
It is repeated.
So Gachagua is telling us, I made a mistake. Forgive me. Now follow me. I will not make another mistake. No, I'll not make this time I'm not making a mistake. Guys are asking, boss, you said you went to 2022 without a party.
Yes.
That is the reason you're in this trouble. But we did have a party. We had
there was Jubilee party.
You were in Jubilee. You left
to UDA.
So you're the one who left the party that belongs to the region and went to another party, and now you're saying you made a mistake. So that is the first mistake. The second mistake is you say you didn't have that all the members of parliament who are elected are Togeges. But you're the one who came and told us to elect them. Now you're telling us remove these ones and elect the ones I will tell you. The same way you told us to elect these ones. So you see, there's a thing. And those are the hard questions we are asking him. Tell him, boss.
So it's about
we are willing to allow you to tell us Ruto is bad. But don't come and tell us who to vote for, because the last election we had, you told us to vote for the guys who
Mheshimiwa, you were still with Gachagua when he was calling other MPs together.
Actually, no. This conversation about calling people foolish and stupid, I had left. First, I left in March.
But during the impeachment, during the discussion about the impeachment, he used to say that, especially the discussions about the Finance Bill 2024, remember he was saying that these Tugeges, you voted for people who are not reasoning to the crowd. He used to call them Tugeges.
True. And one of the problems about being an advisor is that you give advice, it doesn't have to be taken.
So are you saying that
no, I'm not going
he never took your advice?
To hide into that under that. But remember, he was the boss. He was the principal.
You can take an advice.
I can give advice. Now, whether you take it or not is up to you.
So you advise him not to insult leaders.
And insulting leaders, by the way, will never take you far. Because remember, even the guys insulting right now. So now, again, let me use my example of the member of parliament from Nyeri town. So you insult Madenge and you call him foolish and stupid.
Yeah.
And then me, who is seated here in Nyeri, remember, you came and told me to elect him. Nitoe Kameko. Now in 2027 what will you
Tena
do?
unataka tumtoe.
Because you see, you'll come and tell me remove this one.
Na usichague
Number
Kameko.
2, because Kameko is not on your side, you'll tell me don't vote for Kameko. So don't vote for Kameko, who I told you to remove in 2022, and put this guy. And don't vote for this guy who I told you to vote in 2022 because he's a Kagege. Vote for this one. So I'll be looking at you and I'm saying, boss.
So it's like, Mheshimiwa, you are wondering whether Gachagua is the person holding the SI unit to know who is Kagege and who is
Cannot have the SI unit, because also the reality of it is,
Yes.
if you are the one who came and told us to vote these guys, and now all of them are foolish, if we really wanted to be unfiltered, we would ask you hata wewe.
Nani ujinga. We have had that conversation before. But Mheshimiwa, let me ask you a very interesting question.
Yes.
Supposing Gachagua today comes and says he's going to work with other smaller political parties in Mount Kenya, smaller or even bigger, especially the Jubilee party.
Our war would be over. By
Okay.
then, our war would be over.
You would work with him
I would work with Jubilee.
as long as
And then
Jubilee
as a
as
structure
an
works with
affiliate
him.
of the
Because you
DCP.
see, what my fear of Gachagua is this, and
Yes.
you ask me what my tangible problems are. My fear of Gachagua is Gachagua wants to have power without accountability. Part of the problem we would have with Gachagua, even when I was working with him now after we started putting this party together, was this obsession he has with Raila. Gachagua wants to be Raila. Gachagua, in fact, I am more convinced that Gachagua is more interested in becoming a Raila than in removing Ruto from office. And allow me to prosecute my case. Raila has been out of office for 20 years. But Raila has been in every government for 20 years. Right?
Yes.
And sometimes when you listen to Gachagua, you can feel that admiration of, you know what? First, remember Gachagua is impeached. There's no assurance that his impeachment is going to be overturned. But if he was able to form a powerful party
Like ODM.
that has like ODM, that has maybe out of the 10 counties in Mount Kenya, he manages to get 5 governors. He manages to get 5 or 6 senators, and he manages to get like 40 out of the 70 members of parliament. He's going to be a very, very powerful factor, especially if he gets people in who do exactly
through
what
his
he tells
party.
them, right? And he creates a party that is a machine like ODM. Now, when I'm arguing with my friends, I tell them, I am not sure Gachagua wants to remove Ruto from office. It is just exciting to say one term. Why? Because Ruto is the easiest person for Gachagua to cut a deal with in 2027. Because Ruto is going to be going home after one term in 2027. Anybody else we elect in 2027 will have 2 terms ahead of them. Right? So, for example, the other big name people are talking about is Matiang'i. Assuming Matiang'i was to become president in 2027, he's going to have 10 years of presidency. Is Gachagua willing to wait for 10 years for this president to be in office, understanding how power works? However, if Gachagua in 2027 gets 40 members of parliament and a bunch of senators and governors, and that's the kind of thing Raila does. Raila, his people take care of him. You know, kila mtu
Actually, that term of taking care of him means a lot.
Yes,
the
governors are taking care of you. So if Gachagua is able to do that and get a couple of people taking care of him, and then the president who is in office at that time is about to leave, that's an easy deal. Si unaenda nyumbani.
But Mheshimiwa,
so in my opinion,
it might be the devil's advocate. What is wrong with that? Is you know, this is all about politics, right?
The only thing that is wrong with that is that you're lying to us, you upper one term. While essentially don't mean.
My action was not actually about what is wrong with cutting a deal with President Ruto.
Yes,
it's wanting
cementing power, because somebody like Reruk, if Raila was the deputy president of the Republic of Kenya, he would not have been impeached, because I believe
no, you wouldn't have.
He would not have been impeached.
Actually, part of the impeachment of Gachagua had a lot to do with the inexperience.
The inexperience and also the political party.
And remember, and this is why I keep saying, Gachagua wanting to be like Raila is a good ambition.
Very good ambition.
But please remember, Raila has taken 20 years to be Raila, not 3. You can't wake up today. It's like seeing me walking out here and driving a car and being in a suit.
and
then you want to dress like me. You have no idea what my struggles have been. We all know what
you want
Raila's
to stop
struggles
him
have been.
From becoming the person of Raila. You are standing in his way.
First, no, I'm not even standing in his way. I am challenged. In fact, me, I'm not even worried about him.
Yes.
My conversation and my postings and my injections are not for him.
Yes.
They are for the region. I'm telling the region, guys, before we agree that this guy is Raila,
Yes.
can we first have a conversation about how Raila became Raila? How long he took, the struggles he went through. We were just talking here just before we started the show about demos.
Yeah. Yes.
Raila calls for a demo, he goes on the streets.
He goes on the streets, yes.
He does.
He leads it from the front.
Yeah.
I mean, Gachagua calls for a demo and then you can't see him until after the demo.
So trying to understand Mheshimiwa,
Yes.
is like he's saying, if we let this guy have whatever he wants, he will be a dictator.
And I want
And number two,
I want
Brian.
I want us to stick to that point.
Yes.
And ask Mheshimiwa, what accountability did Uhuru have as a leader of Jubilee?
Let me tell you. See, we were members of parliament of Jubilee.
Yeah.
Do you know how many times we fought with Uhuru? Because we were elected independent members of parliament. Now, Raila also has elected members of parliament. The structure of accountability comes up this way. You have Babu. You have Sifuna. You have Orengo over there. You have Anyang' Nyong'o over there. You have Millie Odhiambo over there. You have Junet. You've seen Raila, how Raila operates before he makes a decision. Hizi vitu tunasemanga consultations. You get?
Yeah.
But he actually does them. He goes, he will, first there's a PR for optics. But then there's also the fact that Raila can't wake up today and just say something. Babu will wake up and make a comment here in Tao and you'll be left thinking, wait. So he has learned that he has people he has to first bring on board. And now in that bringing on board is where you have an accountability mechanism. Because Raila is not the only person's career on the line in ODM. You've been watching Sifuna. Sifuna is the senator of Nairobi. At a certain point, there's a conflict between his political career as senator of Nairobi and the positions that Raila is taking. And you keep seeing that conflict happening. That is accountability.
Did that happen with Uhuru?
Yes, it did. But I mean,
so?
where did Ruto come from? Ruto was an accountability structure for Uhuru.
How many times did Uhuru assemble you at the State House to lecture you?
Let me tell you, he lectured us many times.
And even
he called
the
us to
PGs
Sagana.
pastors, he
called
wanted
us
the
to
bills.
Sagana. But remember, the minute when Uhuru woke up and said he wants Raila, he lost over half of his followers left. That is accountability. Whatever the case, he couldn't just force feed us and tell us, sasa nataka mfanye, sasa mimi kutoka leo nataka mfuate Raila. Ruto said no. Gachagua said no. Right?
And what's stopping you from, revolting against Gachagua?
Because remember,
eventually,
first and foremost, you have to start from the structure of your party. If the structure of your party, you see right now, I keep telling people, I have paid over 1 million shillings to Jubilee.
The Jubilee party.
I'm a cuke. Putting money behind the party, but I cannot forget. That is an investment I have put into that party.
Yeah.
So when I sit there and even just as an ordinary member without even being an official of the party, I am allowed to ask questions because I have an investment. I have served as a member of parliament of this party.
Yeah.
So when I say hapa tuendi vizuri, like now I have a problem with those guys who are fighting Kioni. Kioni at a certain point was the only person who kept Jubilee alive.
Yeah. He's sustained by the
sustained the party. So whatever his weakness is, you can't wake up and start saying sasa Jubilee kama inaenda pahali ati mumtoe.
Before we move on to our last part, because I think time is not with us, I want to discuss about you and your head game and what you foresee. But before that, let's talk a little bit about Moses Kuria. Moses Kuria wants to become the Secretary General of Jubilee Party. Is the seat vacant? What is happening?
First, the seat is not vacant. I think what Moses is doing, like anybody else, even me, I can wake up and say I want to be SG. Then you're going to have to follow a process.
Is he a member of Jubilee Party?
I don't know. But Moses is a disruptive force, and sometimes it's a positive disruptive force, sometimes it's a negative disruptive force. But Moses is a kind of force that you cannot ignore.
Yeah.
So what we should be asking is, what is this Moses has seen in Jubilee that makes him want? You remember when the decision was made by court, he was the first person to congratulate Uhuru Kenyatta for getting his party back. So what is this he's seen in Jubilee that he's not seen in DCP, for example?
And also his Chama Chakazi.
He's not seen in Chama Chakazi. He's not seen in UDA.
Maybe he's seen an absentee leadership.
He's seen a gap.
Yeah,
a gap in
it's a
Jubilee.
gap in Jubilee.
For sure, he has seen
And
a
by
gap.
the way, what is the process of making somebody the Secretary General?
You just put your name in, you start campaigning with the membership.
Yes.
Because ultimately, it's the national delegates, the
National,
who is a SG, who is a party leader.
Yes.
At a certain point, we're going to choose a party leader because for sure Uhuru is going to leave at some point. So, you can start saying.
Yes.
And
I hear Moses Kuru wants to be the party leader for the Jubilee Party. What on the streets
Watch,
is?
it is good to have ambition.
You say that Uhuru is gonna leave one day. As in Uhuru left.
No, he hasn't left as a party leader of Jubilee.
By
We
then,
don't see him.
He's still the party leader. Of
the other
Jubilee.
time, by the other day, I saw
you
having a
guys-
photo with Mr.
Remember
Kioni.
when guys were trying to remove people from the office? Uhuru showed up.
Yes,
How long
that
ago was
then.
that?
That was less than 2 years ago. No, when all is said and done.
Let me ask Mheshimiwa,
Yes.
is Uhuru in contact with the Jubilee leadership?
Of course.
Because
He's still the
you
party
see-
leader. He sits for next.
When?
He has next meetings.
When did they meet?
Sasa shida tumetoka kwa public limelight. So even when you hold up
But
neck,
Jubilee
it is not
Party is a
news.
political party.
It is not
I believe if any party sits for a neck, surely we would
know.
We would know, bwana.
You know, Uhuru has
seems-
never, you, know,
I
think
you
Uhuru-
remember Uhuru shut down his own lines. So he's still not that public. He's still not that public guy. They're gonna put you out
And
there.
then Mheshimiwa,
It
let's go
seems like
to,
you're clinging on
to a
Uhuru.
person who already
Oh,
left
no,
and
no,
is
no.
not
To a
interested
person
in
who isn't
politics.
interested.
I don't think
at
we
all.
would say that.
Yeah.
First, we are very proud of Uhuru.
Yes.
He did a good job. He ran this country for 10 years, and I think it's important when you have that's an asset. You can't run away from that being an asset. So telling us to stop clinging to Uhuru is doing us a disservice because it's like telling ODM to stop clinging to Raila. I mean, he's their strongest asset. Uhuru is our strongest asset.
Mhesh, let's go to our last part of our conversation. And
Gachagua, I beg to interrupt you for just 1 second.
Yes.
You raised the subject of Fred Matiang'i. Do you
we hadn't
think
talked about
this is
Matiang'i,
someone that Jubilee would want to front as their candidate?
Fred Matiang'i was the most active cabinet secretary we had when Jubilee was in power. Fred Matiang'i understood the policies and the policies that the party was trying to implement. He's at a certain point when Uhuru and Ruto are not agreeing, Fred Matiang'i became like a de facto deputy president. So if we were to have a deputy party leader then,
would have Matiang'i.
it would have been Matiang'i. You get? So if we are going to present a candidate and Matiang'i, you see also Matiang'i needs to come and put himself through the vetting process of the party. Like if all we know, he has shadows, he has things we don't know. He needs to come through the vetting structure of the party. But once we do have that, I think it would be a good candidate to present.
But there is a party in Nyamira and Kisii.
Yes.
What is it called?
PDP.
PDP, which has
UPA or
produced the governor
UPA.
and UPA actually,
UPA.
United whatever. It has produced the governor and almost all MCAs from Nyamira and Kisii. And this is a party that
they want Matiang'i.
They want Matiang'i, and it is actually affiliated to Matiang'i. Are you forcing Matiang'i to come for Jubilee?
It depends. You see, this is a decision Matiang'i will have to make. If he goes to UPA, then he will have fallen into Gachagua's trap. I've been told kwanza enda upange Kisii.
But he already did.
Alafu ukuje. But
We saw him in
no,
Kisii.
but you see, that was a Thanksgiving he was doing. He was going back home.
What Thanksgiving for what?
Mtu anaendanga nyumbani. Everybody goes home.
But don't you think it's right? It's only
is
fair
tribal
kupanga nyumbani
Let me tell you,
kwanza.
but you see,
Mobilization.
that is now tribal mobilization.
Yeah.
And if you remember, our party leader was always against tribal mobilization. He kept saying, look, we cannot organize ourselves tribally because at a certain point, we are going to exclude other people. So Matiang'i has an option. He can choose to go to UPA and come to the table as the candidate being fronted by the Kisii.
By the party, his region.
By the region, right? Or he can come to Jubilee, which is not a Kisii party. And then come to the
But
table
by the
as
Jubilee,
a party being
if I
pushed.
may ask, other than, the only reason we may say that Jubilee is a national party is probably because of the MPs who are elected from Northeast
Northeastern,
region. But isn't Jubilee a Mount Kenya party?
You see, a party is a party based on where your biggest support base is.
The roots.
Exactly. So if Matiang'i comes to Jubilee Party, for example, he doesn't lose his Kisii support. He doesn't lose it.
Yeah.
He comes with it. So he brings whatever support he has at home to whatever other support exists from Mount Kenya. So and that's why I'm saying it is going to be up to him to decide. Does he want to take the strategic thing of starting from a national party from day one, or does he want to start from a regional party and then go up to a national party?
Then you
You know
asked
what happened
unaleta
before the
kuranga.
2013.
Alafu ukikaa kwa chini ulizwe wewe pata kura zako ni ngapi? 1 million.
Mheshimiwa.
Ni 2.5.
In 2007,
Yes.
there was a party called the ODM. Is it the ODM and ODM Kenya? You know what happened with Akinagetofi Manyara. And remember Ruto, before registering his URP party, you remember he had gone to UDM. So if you go to a party, if you're invited to a party that you have no control, I think you are going back to why probably Gachagua refused the Jubilee party. So can you imagine a situation where Matiang'i is a president? He has differed. A presidential candidate. That's the president. He has actually been elected, but he differs with the Jubilee party leadership, and they decide, by the way, we are going to remove you as our party leader, and you are the president. So don't you think Matiang'i?
It has happened in South Africa.
It has happened in South Africa. Don't you think Matiang'i will be so naive?
Why does he assume he can't be removed by UPA? I mean,
But that is
when
what
you
I
think
mean.
about it, UDA's biggest membership was from Mount Kenya.
But the person who was in control was Ruto.
Yes. So the question that happens is, why not come in? Because you know Ruto didn't start UDA. Ruto took over UDA. It used to be a party called Power. Then he took over and he changed the name. Then he became the de facto leader of the
Raphael
party.
Tuju's party.
Yes. So nobody stops.
No, was it Power?
It was Power. It was Power.
It was
before.
not,
And then it changed
they changed
names
to something
you
else. Something else that.
But it was led by Fatuma Dulo.
Yes.
I think.
Fatuma Dulo.
Then
Yeah.
from there it came and became UDA.
UDA.
So nothing stops
Matiang'i.
from. Of course, I would think he'd be very foolish if he became president without full control of Jubilee. I think the first negotiation he would do
Is to
sit
get
down
a
and
person
be first
from
become the
Kisii,
de facto,
the SG.
no, become the de facto party leader of Jubilee. And I don't see Uhuru having a problem relinquishing that position to Matiang'i. So that would be the kind of conversations he would need to have. But then also the advantage of coming to Jubilee is he already has structures. There's a certain way of doing things. We even have a track. I mean, have you seen a track of any other party moving around? At least we have a track that you can see moving around.
I think if you continue
Lakini
having the
pia
Jubilee
mnachotwa,
discussion,
you're being auctioned every day on the paper.
No, that
Jubilee
was then.
Now also when you go and lose an election,
Mashida unapata mingi.
mashida tunakuja. So as a party, but we streamlined, we sikia kitu kama hiyo. Umeona tumepatiwa pesa.
Yeah.
So now you can't say we are broke. We tuko na kitu kidogo.
Now, Mheshimiwa, going back to you, what is your end game? Because, I mean, look at it. Everybody in Mount Kenya is singing Gachagua and Skiza Crowd. You, who people think had the best opportunity to reclaim your political seat, Mheshimiwa in Nyeri.
Yes.
You have now decamped and gone back
against
to
the wave.
against the wave. And as we ask
Don't
you, what
don't
is
you
your...
ever learn, man?
That's what they keep asking me.
You stuck with Raila.
They keep asking me. They ask me, Bana, you in 2022 we told you.
Yeah.
Now the funniest thing is that
In
the guy is telling me
2013.
that.
In 2013.
I did run in 2013.
No, you did, but you were with
It was
Raila.
with the
Political
Baba.
advisor. I was actually
Man.
political advisor to Baba.
Yani you are campaigning for Raila in Mount Kenya. Sure,
Yes,
Mheshimiwa.
again in 2022.
I think you are either aggressive or
No, I have principles. And those
Idealistic.
principles of mine,
Idealistic
let me
or-
tell you, those principles of mine ultimately come to prove. Now, when I meet people these days in Nyeri, they tell me, Mwesha tafadhali tungekusikiza.
But that
So
was then.
the issue is, do you want to be right or do you want to get elected? And sometimes when you have to make that choice, you see, today I walk with my head up high in Nyeri. In fact, to a large extent, I most probably walk with my head held high more than the incumbent member of parliament. Because this is what I said. Now guys are like, Mazi, you are right on this one, on this one, on this one. The people who came and decampaigned me, one of them being Gachagua, is now, in fact, he came to a church service the other day and he said, you know, Gujiri, there's something you had seen. We should have listened. So, again, we are here. I'm telling guys, hii njia Gachagua anapeleka nyinyi, hii mtazama.
So Mheshimiwa
Guys are telling me ground.
Mheshimiwa is saying
Mnasema.
that there are two things. You want to be, you either be right
Right or elected.
Or
or
elected.
elected.
So you
Yes,
don't
for
want to
Sure,
be
you
elected.
don't want to be to get
Let me tell
elected.
You know, you
Hutaki
elected.
kiti yani.
Dongo, are you elected?
I'm not.
Brian, are you elected?
I'm not.
How
Not
many
yet.
people get elected in Kenya? 450, maybe 500. You can't be that you are going to sell your soul to get elected. I mean, ultimately, today Mudiawari is at home. Uhuru is at home. Raila hasn't been elected for 20 years.
But he gets to the government through the back.
You get? No, but because he stands for something, think about this. I wasn't elected.
Yeah.
But Gachagua came to look for me. Why did he come to look for me? And I had failed.
That's another thing I want to ask you.
Because
are you
I
doing
stood
whatever you are
for
doing so that the government can come look for you, see the only person with the guts
But then, let me
to
tell
fight
you,
Gachagua and then sustain you?
the issue is not. I'm assuming that the government is going to fight Gachagua in their own way. So they don't need help.
But you're the
from
most
me.
vocal man in Mount Kenya. Nobody else is fighting Gachagua. It's you.
It's just because I have just begun. I've just started fight. Today is
But,
day 19.
Mr. Gashana,
I've only done this for 19 days.
Is Kindiki a joke to you?
No, but Kidiki, he's not. Mtu wa mnoma si mnoma, fire si fire. He's not.
But he's fighting
He
Gachagua.
said he's a very principled
He's
leader.
also vocal.
He said the time for politics is yet to come, so he's not fighting anyone. Yeye kazi yake ni mimi ni mnoma si mnoma. But Mheshimiwa,
Yes.
Look at it in this way. No other politician in Mount Kenya is able to face Gachagua head on. Even President William Ruto's allies in Mount Kenya, I believe they are failing him. The only man who is able to sustain insults in social media is the man we have here. So the question is, are you fighting Gachagua so that the government may recognize you and use you to fight him?
You see, that would assume when I was fighting him in 2022, I was fighting him so that I would get recognized.
And he is recognized.
I fight Gachagua on a matter of principle.
Yes.
I said I have a problem with dictatorship. Gachagua wants to create a one-party dictatorship in Mount Kenya region. I don't have a problem with it because I see what it does even in Nyanza. Part of the reason why we keep bragging that we have votes is because we mobilize votes during elections. It's not how many votes you have; it's how many votes you actually mobilize to actually come and vote. Part of the reason Mount Kenya is able to mobilize so many votes is because of how many parties we have. So kila mtu anatoa, wewe unatoa watu wako 5, wewe unatoa 100, watoa 1000, mnaweka kwa ballot. They'll vote, they'll fight here at MCA, MP level, but hapa juu wanatoa ama wanaweka.
So are you interested in reclaiming your former seat?
Yes, absolutely. I'm working very hard, and Nyeri town people are not stupid. They
people serve a single term in Nyeri town.
Murugi did 2 terms. There was a wave in 2022, which they all now say was a mistake. And one of the things I'm reminding them, let us not make that mistake again. Don't come and be told by someone tuende namna hii. Challenge him.
Lakini mweshi utawezana ukiwa peke yako.
Sasa unajua mtu anafanyanga, Wangari Maathai when she started planting trees, she started by herself. Before you knew it, she got a Nobel Prize. Unaweza pata nimepata Nobel Prize hapa tu kama mchezo.
Ya kupiga Gachagua.
Ya kusimama against dictatorship. Because it's not about, I've just told you, if Gachagua started becoming accommodative, and started appreciating that he cannot dictate to the region. I mean, he's a Johnny come lately. Even Uhuru at his prime, in 2013, when Uhuru was running for president, Gachagua's brother ran on another party. In Nyeri.
In 2013.
In 2013.
And he became the governor.
Gachagua's own brother, elder brother, Uhuru was mobilizing everybody under TNA. He came to Nyeri. Nyeri told him, boss, kiti hapa juu tutakupatia. Hizi zingine wachana na sisi.
And the members of the GNU party, I think, could have voted
GNU,
for Uhuru.
The member of the governor was GNU. The senator Kagwe was SDP.
And
so why would you come and tell us that now you're
Mwangi Kionjuri, was he voted in GNU?
No, he alianguka hiyo election, but then he was made CS by Uhuru. So that's my problem. Now imagine Uhuru had done.
He made the CS.
If Uhuru had woken up and he was powerful, he was actually a lot more powerful than Gachagua is right now, and said nobody's running on any other party here except TNA, would Derito Gachagua have become governor of Nyeri?
True. Mheshimiwa, I've heard you say that you are on a 1-month injecting campaign.
Yes.
What happens after this month?
Naenda kwa ground. Hii ni
online.
It's called a social experiment. You're listening, you're hearing, I'm learning.
So when you say you are going to the ground, is it near the town or you're going to?
Unajua mtu anazanga nyumbani.
Yes.
I'll start doing small.
So I get you, Mheshimiwa. What you want to start what you started in 2018, the Kieleweke.
Unazanga tu. Unajua hizi vitu.
Do you have a name for this one?
Naitwa Matigari.
What does that mean?
Matigari is a remnant. Why it's called the remnant is because we have a group of people that are with Ruto.
Yes.
And we have a group of people that are with Gachagua. But there's also a group of people that doesn't belong to any of them. And this is a group we're trying to protect because Gachagua is trying to scare us to go to him by threatening that if you're not with him, then we will profile you as being with Ruto. And as we are saying, boss, we were not with Ruto even in 2022 when you were with him.
And you are still here.
And we are still here. When ndio umekuja ukatukuta. So it's, and that is the irony of it. Gachagua waking up and trying to start saying that people like Gonjiri are Ruto's stooges. And when we could have been his stooges and gotten elected, we refused. So
Mheshimiwa, there are two things.
Yes.
You see that if Gachagua wakes up and thinks that he's going to work with be accommodative, you're going to work with him. So if he does
we are
not,
going to stop fighting him.
Doesn't
mean we're going to stop.
yes,
We're going to work with him. We're just going to
so
stop
the other alternative is if he continues with his Kukua bully, and Ruto says, "I want to work with you." Would you go to Ruto?
I'll have a meeting with the people of Nyeri Town.
But you have did you have the meeting with the Nyeri Town people to fight Gachagua?
You see, I'll be then going for an elective office. You know, I'm not going for an elective office. Nashindanga nikiambiwa na watu kujiri kiti itaenda na uliza kitu gani. Mimi nauza China mandazi pale Rwanda, unaniambia kiti itaenda gani? Lakini we are now having a kiti conversation. Which is in another 20 months or 18 months, for example, before we now go to even call them 16 months before we go to the last 6 months of April 2027.
Yes.
I'll actually sit with people of Nyeri. Tell them, you guys meona vile nimepigana na Gachagua. Waniambia lakini uko ndio unataka uende. I'm like, boss, mko serious? So we will have that conversation with them at that point.
Give us your parting shot, Mheshimiwa.
The discussion can actually go until tomorrow.
Two things.
Yes.
First, what you guys are doing is an amazing thing.
Thank you so much.
Unfiltered, having candid conversation. As I said, ask a couple of these guys who actually made the impeachment decision to come here and have a candid. Now wasiogope.
Yes.
Watu ya Mount Kenya wakuja hapa waseme
we are going to
what is going on. But then also I think it is important. You guys are saying it's a one-man show. It's a one-man fight I'm having. But I don't think it's just a one-man fight. I just from listening to what people are saying, the questions that people are asking. Like, for example, I asked a very simple question. Gachagua had said he was going to launch the party.
He has not launched yet. And he's now
then the next conversation was that he wrote that Kasarani, serikali imekataa Kasarani. I mean, it can't be that Kasarani is the only place you can launch a party. There are very many other places you could have launched. But nobody's asking him that question. And because I had been in that party, including I had even actually also mobilized resources for that launch. I'm asking, so these resources that were mobilized to launch the party, where are they at this moment in time? Sasa nasikia Gachagua anaenda America for several months. So sasa mtu anauliza boss, kama tumeanza namna hii tutaenda namna gani? So that is, but somebody told me hiyo ni maneno ya DCP, tumeachia DCP. But you see, I was part of the formation. So
of the party of the DCP.
Kuna mtu ataniambia wewe Gunjiri ulikuja ukaniambia nitoe pesa.
He said you had been sent to mislead him, although you are making your last but they said you had been sent to as an
ni mtoto. This guy became what is this? Nilikuwa nimetumwa nikampoteze. Kwani ni mtoto? How? I mean, even just making that kind of statement tells you what kind of a problem you have, because you can't stand up and say you are entrusted with the office of the deputy president. Jamaa ulishinda kwa election, alafu kaleta kwa ofisi yako kama advisor, alikumislead,
kukupotosha.
Si hata wewe hapo kuna ka ukosefu
kweli mheshimiwa.
I mean, Brian, let's be honest.
We wish we had more time.
Really, mheshimiwa, our time is up. Thank you so much for coming, and we will continue bringing more and more guests, including the former deputy president Gachagua's allies at this table, to tell us where are the candidates' money, the mobilization money, the party's launch money. And until Thursday, I'm Dongo Gachane.
I'm Brian Otieno. See you.
Asanteni sana.
Unfiltered with Brian Otieno and Dongo Gachane. 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 Unfiltered with Bran Otieno and Dongo Gashane. Unfiltered with Bran Otieno and Dongo Gashane. Unfiltered with Bran Otieno and Dongo Gashane.